Solving complex fractions. This is one of those topics in Algebra 2 that when students first see these problems, they assume it's a very, very complicated concept, but it really is not too bad. It's a lot of the basic stuff of adding and subtracting fractions, common denominators, some basic factoring involved, maybe a little bit of reciprocals, but it's all basic concepts just kind of put together. So if you do it step by step, they're really not very complicated at all. And so what we see here, if we look at our first example on the left, we have a complicated numerator, and that's everything above our line here. X over 3 minus 3 over x, and a complicated denominator, 1 minus 3 over x. And so what I'm going to do is just focus on just the numerator for now. Just looking at the top here, just ignoring the bottom. You can even kind of cover up the bottom with something if I want. Let me get a little rectangle out here just so this isn't distracting me, because I only want to focus on the top. So I'm looking at just the top, x over 3 minus 3 over x. That's a subtraction of two fractions, and I know I could easily do that. I just need a common denominator to do that. So the common denominator would be 3x. So I'm going to multiply them both by what they need to become 3x. The left side, I need to multiply it by x, multiplied by x, and the right side will be multiplied by 3. And so I'm going to end up with x squared and 9 as my numerators. And they're not like terms, so it becomes x squared minus 9. I can't combine them. It's not like terms. Over the common denominator, 3x. All right. That is my complicated or complex numerator. Now, let me focus on just the denominator. I guess I don't really need that anymore. The bottom is 1 minus 3 over x. And essentially, I'm going to do the same thing. First of all, I'm going to make it two fractions, subtracting, but they'll need common denominators. This time it'll be just x, multiply them by x, and I get just x minus 3 over x. And so all I've done was on top, I combined two fractions with common denominator, subtracting fractions, and I did the same thing on the bottom. And now what I have is a fraction over a fraction, or a fraction divided by a fraction. And we know that means we change dividing fraction into a multiplication of its reciprocal. So the complex numerator, x squared minus 9 over 3x, is going to be times the reciprocal of the complex denominator, x over x minus 3. And from here, it's a basic factor, cross out, simplify type of situation. The x squared minus 9 is very recognizable dots, x plus 3, x minus 3, and that's really it for the factoring. But I can cross out a common x minus 3, I could cross out this common x, and what I'm left on top is x plus 3, and what I'm left on the bottom is just 3. The second one might look more complicated, but it's actually easier. The common denominator for the top and the bottom is actually both going to be x squared. I see I have a 1, an x, and an x squared. So if I multiply the 1 over 1 by x squared over x squared, it becomes just x squared. The 7 over x, I got to multiply it by x. And what I end up with is x squared minus 7x plus 12 over x squared. And very similar on the bottom. This one's going to be x squared. This one needs an x. This way, they all have, denominators of x squared. And it becomes x squared minus 1x minus 6 over x squared. Again, it's a fraction over a fraction, so I'm going to change it to a multiplication problem of my numerator times the reciprocal of the denominator. Some basic trinomials here to factor. This is going to be x minus 3 and x minus 4 that multiply to positive 12 and add to negative 7. This is an x minus 3 and an x plus 2 that multiply to negative 6 and add to positive 1. And here I can cross out these x squareds. I can cross out an x minus 3, and I have left an x minus 4 over an x plus 2.